This is Inside the Locker Room, where football isn't just a game, it's a war zone. Every take, unfiltered. Every prediction, ruthless. From Sunday battles to primetime legends. We break down the matchups, the mind games, and the moments that define champions. Fantasy, film, trash talk, all inside the locker room. So if you came for smoke, you're in the fire now.
We are back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room, and it's a big one. We got a special guest with us today, Miss Anaya Thomas from Howard. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good. And Michael, do you got anything to say before we start this off?
Yeah, first and foremost, Ms. Thomas, we appreciate you taking the time to not only, DM us on HBCU Central, but to also just, understand the vision of what we're trying to do for HBCUs. And you're the second women's basketball player as our special guest. So one, that's a huge accomplishment to you. And not only that, it's a huge accomplishment to Howard University because we see what y'all doing over there, and that's why I reached out to you because I told Deuce, I was like, we got to get, some players over there at Howard and get them on here because it's real competitive over there. And I don't know if you heard, but I heard you've been a problem child over there. You've been a problem child, as they call you, and that's why I posted that clip on your story. First of all, good strong and one, by the way. But I just want to appreciate you for one, like I said, taking the time, and I hope that your presence on here is not only helping you, but it's helping Howard University and all HBCUs combined. Because, like I'll tell all of our players and coaches that come on here, is that HBCUs, they don't get a lot of recognition and hype from all these pro basketball and all these associations. So getting you and all the other players on here, it helps us to because we're trying to let these people know that hey, it's just as competitive over here in the HBCU world than it is in the bigger school world. Because bigger schools they got money, but at schools like Howard and all these other schools and MEAC, SIACC conference, they got legacy, they got history. So your presence is making that well known.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys, for putting me on here and just what y'all have been doing, trying to uplift, women's basketball, especially in the HBCU setting. So shout out to y'all for doing what y'all do.
Thank you. And, just to kick this interview off, Michael, he stated that you were a problem child on the court. I mean, we've all seen it. We've seen the clips. We've seen the highlights. It's been all over Instagram. But what I want to ask you mainly is, what has just really gone into Howard's play? Because, y'all are starting off 6-1. Y'all are 7-0 at home. So what has just went into y'all's play to start this conference playoff? Because y'all are the hottest team in the MEAC right now.
Aside from just camaraderie, I think we have a very strong chemistry. We all want to play for each other, win for each other, especially on the defensive end, just putting ourselves out there and giving 100% for the next person. If one person is down, we want to be the next one to step up. So, our camaraderie carries us a long way, but also just, being locked in and focused on the main goal, which is to win a MEAC championship and get to the NCAA tournament. We had 5 returners from the team last year. So only 5 of us were there for that MEAC championship game. And just knowing how we felt about that loss and knowing that we fell short, we wanted to come into this season and dominate and, prove that we are the projected number 1 team for a reason. And obviously, we still got a long way to go, still second half of the conference, and then we get to the MEAC. So just continuously proving ourselves day by day, practice by practice, game by game, that we're here to show up and play.
Great response. Michael?
Agree. And, I'm actually glad that, you stated that because, Ms. Thomas, one thing about conference play is that it's 50-50 either way, and, conference play, a lot of people are like, such and such team, they're going to win the tournament and all this and that. But you can't really decide that on regular season. It's just about, how you play the game in and game out, whether that's at home or whether that's travel. You don't want to just win games at home. And like what Deuce and me say all the time is that, out of conference games, we don't really count those. You know, you can count those if you want, but at the same time, it doesn't really determine on the team until they hit the conference play. And so far, y'all have proven that, you know, time and time again, is that, you know, you can look at conference play all you want, but it's all about. I mean, I'm sorry, you can look at out of conference play all you want, but it's conference play that really determines on where a team is at going to the tournament, and that's another thing. But my question to you is, you know, I did some research. I did some research on you, and you know, this next question I have for you is called the culture factor, and I put culture in parentheses because here's the reason. In your roster profile, you stated that you chose Howard specifically for the culture. Now that you are a senior in your senior year, how has that HBCU culture directly impacted your mental well-being and compared, I'm sorry, confidence compared to your time in the SEC?
I would just say the support that you get outside of just basketball. You know, there's a lot of people that support our team and what we do. And I can, you know, I have so many connects that I can go to outside of my coaching staff that would just pour into me. And I feel like, you know, within the SEC, it's more so of a business rather than a family dynamic or, you know, community support. And, you know, you're going to get that at HBCU because, you know, being in a Black community, that's all we have is each other. So I would just say the uplifting that I get from not only my teammates and my coaching staff and the people here on campus, just the fans as well.
So what I have to ask, so for y'all, you know, you mentioned that y'all made it to the championship last year, and y'all know y'all felt that loss, and y'all are coming back harder this year. But my question to you is just what has been the biggest area of improvement in the locker room, on the court, that has, you know, excelled y'all's play from last year to this year?
Again, like I said, our camaraderie, like we all are just playing for each other. There's not one selfish person on this team I can say, like, I haven't seen one person that just wants to play for themselves. I haven't seen one person that, you know, is only focused on when they're doing good and can care less if the team is doing good as well. Like if they're doing bad, they don't care about anything else. Like I haven't seen any of that. I think we all are just bought into winning for each other, playing for each other, you know, giving our all at the end of the day. Like, and it's not just in a game that we see that in practice. We see that outside of practice. Everybody's doing what they have to do to be ready to play. People are putting in extra time, even if they're not able to get the time on the court in a game, they're still putting in the time in to be ready when their number is called. So yeah, I feel like our team dynamic is at 100% this year.
And we can most definitely see that on the court.
On the court, next woman up mentality, right? So, you know, that's the thing. You know, when you have a culture in the locker room, and what I mean by culture is I mean connection. When you have, you know, culture and connection in the locker room with all your teammates, that can transition onto the court either in a good way or a bad way. Because you can, I tell Deuce all the time, you can have a good team but have a bad locker room, or you can have a good locker room but have a bad team on the court. But y'all have able to show that y'all have both. Y'all have a good locker room and y'all have a good team on the court. Like you said, you know, you have players coming in now, they're ready to compete, they're ready to go after it. And that's what matters, especially in conference play, because conference play is game by game. It doesn't matter how many home games you can have. I can tell that you have 5 straight or 6 straight home games. Those, you know, games doesn't really matter because no matter where you play, it's all about how you come out. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so far, throughout this season, y'all have shown that y'all are one of the most competitive teams so far in your conference. But my next question to you is I wrote this down. It's called On Court Impact and Legacy. The blueprint for success. That's what I call this in the bullet point for my next question for you. Howard recently made history with his first women's NIT win. So my question to you is, how do you think the success of the Bison women's basketball program is helping shift the narrative about the quality of basketball played at HBCU?
I mean, you know, those games you can't really take lightly because those are opportunities to have eyes on you to showcase that you are a talented team and that you can play, you know, at the same level as all these other schools. And I think really just not taking it for granted at the end of the day. Like, the opportunity to play on those platforms are very monumental for our program. So just being able to step up and show out and get a win is just a lot for us. You know, I don't know, like HBCUs don't really get much attention, until you beat a big school. So getting those wins just means a lot.
Oh, you got something to say, Michael?
I'm sorry. Ms. Thomas, it was something that you just said that just made so much sense to me. That HBCUs don't get a lot of hype compared to these big Power 5 schools. And the only reason why these Power 5 schools are getting the media recognition is because these bigger schools, and me and do say this all the time, they have money. They have money. And that's why, most HBCUs play teams like them just to get, money to help the program. But like I tell dudes at the same time, if HBCUs are going to play these Power 5 schools and get, televised attention, then it needs to be televised attention in conference play. Because what a lot of people don't know is, and I tell a lot of people that don't know nothing about HBCUs, I even tell our own guys this on this podcast, is that one thing about MEAC, one thing about the SIAC conference, or the whatever conference you want to call it, mainly HBCU conference in general, especially the SWAC, for example. The one thing about HBCU conferences is that it's real competitive. There's no, narrowing it down like, oh, they're the hottest team in the conference right now. I mean, if you look at these other teams, man, they ain't gonna catch up. You can't really see that. Like, I can pull up y'all conference right now, and it's like it's very competitive. There barely isn't a margin gap. If there's only a margin gap, it's like maybe 2 or 3 games. But like I was just saying it too long ago, y'all have been able to prove that even though this conference is very competitive, y'all are controlling y'all pace, y'all are controlling y'all mindset, y'all are controlling your focus. And I can tell that, y'all head coach has been preaching that to y'all, and that's good. But like I said, these media televised teams and news stations, stuff like that, they need to be trying to invest into looking at these conference plays. These conference games, they're real electrifying. And I know you can agree with me on that. They're real competitive. But that's why HBCU Central, that's why what me and Deuce do when it comes down to HBCU Hoops is that we're trying to get players, we're trying to get, schools, because it's not just about getting you on. It's about getting Howard University on. It's about getting, UAPB on. It's about getting Prairie View on. It's about getting HBCUs on in general, because HBCU pride is where it's at. There is history behind HBCUs. So I think and you don't have to be a 4-star or 5-star recruit to go to a bigger school when you can experience HBCU experience, because it's where it's at. It's at every home venue. Y'all gym be rocking every home game. You know why? Because that's HBCU pride. That's why what me and Deuce do, that's why we're trying to get people to understand, is that it's not just about the player, it's about the school and the history behind the school. That's why we do what we do. But Deuce, was there something else you wanted to say, man?
Yeah, look, Ms. Thomas, I just wanted to ask you one more question, because next week y'all play a good Maryland Eastern team who is actually ahead of y'all in the standings. Just how do y'all prep and focus for them? Because y'all beat them earlier in the year, but how did y'all just prep for them this time, the second matchup?
Well, I will say the first matchup they did beat us.
Oh, then I looked at it wrong.
It's okay. It was a very close and competitive game. Again, like you said, games in HBCU conferences will be competitive, and we just have to be able to get the attention that we need to showcase that. But moving forward, I think our mindset is just getting that lick back at the end of the day. Like, for me, that's all I've been saying, is that I need that lick back, because I personally felt like we should have won that game. And I don't want to take anything away from that UMES team. Like, they're a very good team. They have very skilled guards, very competitive team. But at the end of the day, I fell short in my area, especially with free throws. And, we just didn't do what we needed to do to finish the game. But our mindset now is just to leave that in the past, learn from our mistakes, continue to watch film, watch what we did wrong, and move forward and grow from that, and be able to come and show up when the time is to play. Obviously this game is going to be very important for us, especially if we want that number 1 seed when it comes to MEAC tournament time. So just being able to, step up, me, myself as a scoring leader, being able to, work with our team captains and just lead the team and make sure that everybody is focus is on the right thing and that everybody's mindset is prepared for us to win the game.
Agreed. And even though
Great
y'all lost that
response.
game, for sure, even though y'all lost that game, but see, here's the thing, and I say all the time that home games, they really don't matter in conference play, but when you're playing teams like Maryland Eastern, it kind of does matter because now it's like you kind of have to get the whole entire student section, alumni there because Maryland Eastern and y'all are one of the hottest teams in the MEAC right now.
Yeah.
So that's where that's one thing about conference play. That's one thing I also like about conference play is that sometimes you get to play the team that you lost get another chance.
Yeah.
So that's also important, and not only is that important, but it's also important that you have them in your home, area, in your home environment, so you can get the crowd behind you. And like you said, you struggled that game in free throws. But see, that's the thing. In conference play, you're going to struggle in certain things, but y'all have been able to overcome it. Y'all on a 4-game win streak right now. So even though y'all did lose that game, y'all still have, because before that y'all got South Carolina State, you got Delaware State, and then you got Maryland Eastern. So really, the only way you could come into this game on a high note is if you win those first 2 games before you even play Maryland Eastern, right?
Yeah.
So that's just the mindset that you have to do. But like people say all the time, you have to take one game at a time because, like I said, you got South Carolina State at home. That's another one. That's another good one. Then you got Delaware State. That's also another good one. So it's a lot of competition in these first 2 games before you even play Maryland Eastern. But I guess so. I got 2 questions for you, and I'm gonna leave it alone after this. Going into these first 2 games before you even play Maryland Eastern, let's take Maryland Eastern off the board for a second. You got South Carolina State, you got Delaware State. What is your particular mindset going into these 2 games? Because, like you said, you struggled in free throws against Maryland Eastern. What are you anticipating on doing versus South Carolina State and Delaware State?
Honestly, just playing my role. Being a leader on the glass. Obviously, I'm a scoring leader, but that just means that people are going to pay more attention to me, especially given the fact that we played them before. I had decent games against them, so now they have to change their game plans. So just being able to adjust to that, see what's going on, and be able to put my teammates in the right position because of the attention that I'm getting. And then just the preparation that comes with it. It's one practice at a time, like I said, one game at a time. So just making sure that the focus leading up to that UMES game is we got to take care of business with Del State, South Carolina State, get those 2 out the way, and then go get the win that we need on the 14th.
Agreed. And my next question to you is, basically a question that I've asked all players, and it's called the why HBCU perspective. So, choosing comfort over status. You chose Howard after experiencing the high pressure environment of the SEC. What would you say to other Power 5 athletes who are afraid that moving to an HBCU might be a step down in their career, even though there's nothing wrong with going to HBCU? Like I said before, you can be a 4-star, 5-star recruit in your state. It doesn't matter. One thing about these big schools, they feed off those over how many stars you have, but they don't know how to use you. HBCUs, they know how to use you because HBCUs there for every single player. It doesn't matter where you're ranked at. It's just about, how much work can you come in. And we see all the time. We see all these big school, women's basketball players, men's basketball players transfer to HBCUs. And they be like, man, I did not realize I should have chose an HBCU first. So I'm going to say the question again. What would you say to other Power 5 athletes who are afraid that moving to an HBCU might be a step down in their career?
If you are who you say you are, you can show up wherever you go. So for me, I didn't play that much at Kentucky, but I knew who I was at the end of the day, no matter how many minutes I got. So coming into a HBCU, it just was an opportunity for me to showcase that. We still get to play Power 5 teams, Power 4 teams in non-conference. So regardless of where I'm at, I'm going to try to show up as who I am, because that's who I am at the end of the day. So I just feel like we shouldn't necessarily worry about the name of the school, how much money you're going to get from the school, NIL, all of that, because it has nothing to do with where you can end up in your future. Like, me being here at Howard has opened up so many opportunities. I'm able to be on podcasts just like this, talk to so many people, share my story, showcase my talent. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't decided to make that change. At the end of the day, I think that Howard was definitely the right choice to make, especially within my career. I was coming into an environment where I felt celebrated, regardless if I had an up game, if I was down, like I was still celebrated and, treated like I was worth something. So I think at the end of the day, you just have to go somewhere where you feel appreciated and valued, and you have the support behind you.
Deuce, what does Grambling logo say all the time? Everybody is
everybody is somebody.
Everybody is somebody. That and I bring that up even though that's Gramblin's motto, but I kind of transition that on to all HBCUs, that everybody is somebody at the HBCU. It doesn't really matter where you come from. You can come from overseas and come to HBCU and enjoy the entire experience, where you're a athlete or not, just a student. It doesn't matter. HBCU pride, HBCU love, it's family. It's not just a student body. It's not just a university. It's a family. It's a family history there. And like you just said, that you felt welcome despite of how you play, whether it was good or bad. You had people behind you, and that's why that's why me and Deuce, we try to tell players all the time, is that one thing that about HBCUs that people don't understand is that HBCUs is for everyone. It's for anyone. You can have a good background. You can have a poor background. You can have the lowest ranking in your state, but you can blossom in a. You can blossom. You can uplift in an HBCU, and that's the thing. HBCUs is where it's at, but a lot of people don't understand that because they think HBCUs are just regular small schools. They're non-competitive, and I'm not even gonna lie. I kind of got into it with a person about that because I mean, you can't particularly say that HBCUs are just regular small schools. I don't really think about them like that. But if you just took the time to understand the history on behind how this school first started, you will be amazed. And I tell you all the time that you can't speak about HBCU if you don't know nothing about an HBCU. And that's the standard for HBCUs. Is that HBCUs can get you to that next level, but it's all about, this media network taking the time to actually see players like you, see players at Howard University, see players in the MEAC conference. Is that they're competitive. Let's take a shot. Let's get these players. First of all, we get these players drafted, because that's another thing. HBCU players, they don't get drafted. HBCU players, you don't see players getting drafted. You see players that play for like LSU with Kim Mulkey or Don, Coach Don over there at South Carolina. You see players like that get drafted, but you never see an HBCU player get drafted out of an HBCU. And
but
that's
I want to add though, these players from these big Power 4 schools are getting drafted, but they're still getting cut.
Exactly.
So it really doesn't matter where you end up at, on the collegiate level, because your outcome can be the same no matter where you are. So I think it's just about focusing on, improving yourself in an environment where you can flourish. At the end of the day, your life can be different compared to a Power 4 person, or it can end up the same. Y'all might take the same route. A lot of these Power 4 people who are getting cut end up going overseas. Or a lot of people who do play Power 4, they choose to skip the draft and just go straight to overseas, and that could be the same, scenario for an HBCU player. So I don't really like to, compare the two, because if what's meant for you is meant for you, and wherever God decides your path is going to be, that's what you're going to go on.
Right, and that's true. And I'm kind of glad that you touched base on that, because that was also going to be my last point. Is that there are some HBCU players who end up surprising a lot of these pro agencies or pro franchises. Is that they don't really see until they witness. I guess the point is I'm making is that they don't see how the HBCU players till they witness seeing them in action on their roster, and that is true because there are a lot of big school players who end up getting drafted, end up getting cut, or end up playing overseas, and then HBCU players they end up taking the spotlight. You know, but over time, if you look at the math, it's like you don't want to compare, but sometimes you kind of just have to look at the facts. Is that HBCU players they're not a draft prospect because they're not being looked at as a draft prospect. So that's kind of what you got to look at. But my last question for the day because I feel like we're keeping you here, and I don't want to disturb anything because I know you got a good game coming up. But Miss Thomas, my last question to you for this podcast and for this episode. Y'all beat a Power Five school before conference play was started.
Mhm.
This season, you led the Bison to a significant win over Providence, which is in the Big East Conference.
Mhm.
What does it mean to you as a former SEC player to show the country that HBCU talent can not only compete with but dominate Power Conference teams?
Um, I mean, I just hope to inspire people who have been in my position or, are coming up to know that like wherever you go, no matter if it's Power Five, Power Four, NIA, JUCO, Division One, Division Two, Division Three, that you can still have a success story. Like coming out of high school, I didn't get any offers until my senior year. So it took a lot of time for me to develop my game and get to the position that I'm in now. So it obviously means a lot to me to be able to, you know, be with the team and showcase our talent in this way, especially against big schools like that. And again, just showing that HBCUs can compete with these teams as well, and just hopefully draw attention to not only myself but my teammates as well who aspire to go beyond college basketball. Want to play basketball overseas or do whatever, that they can get eyes on them too. So just
Agreed.
just putting ourselves out there at the end of the day and showing that Howard is here to compete.
Agree. I like that. That's all the questions I have. First of all, shout out to you and Howard University for all the work that y'all been putting in so far this
Great work.
year. We have been paying attention, as you can see. We've been paying attention a whole lot, and this will not be the last time you hear from me. This won't be the last time you hear from me and Deuce because probably when conference play, tournament starts,
Mhm.
we will have you back on. So we will have you on standby whenever tournament play starts, and me and Deuce will get back in touch with you and we'll talk about what's to look for in tournament. But right now y'all have the potential of locking the number one seed, but you got about one, two, three. You got one, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8 games left before the tournament starts. So the I guess what coaches say all the time is that the choice is yours, whether how you finish this season starting out.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you, Ms. Thomas, for taking the time with us. We appreciate you not only for representing Howard University, but representing yourself as a SEC and now a MEAC conference player. That takes a lot to do, but your work and your ethic is proving us right that HBCU players are just as competitive on the other side of the continent. But Deuce, you have anything, my man?
You pretty much said everything that I had to say, Michael. But Miss Thomas, you're always welcome back on. Like Michael stated, around
Yes,
tournament time, it will be a pleasure to have you on. Just to talk the
absolutely.
MEAC tournament and possibly the NCAA tournament, barring that
Look,
y'all
you can
make it. And
bring
I most definitely believe that y'all will make it as in the bracket. But
for sure.
it was great having you on. You enjoy your night and make sure you
Yes,
shout us out, and we'll continue to shout you out too on our page.
No, of
and you
course.
can
Thank
bring
y'all.
Yes,
Yes, thank
ma'am.
y'all
You can
for having me.
bring more and more.
Of course.
I'm sorry.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah, you can bring a head coach, you can bring some teammates. Hey, tell everyone we're more than welcome to have them on this show because we're trying to get coaches on here as well. So if your coach wants to be with you or some teammates want to be with you, bring them on because like I said, we're here for all HBCU players and coaches. So it doesn't matter. So we appreciate you for even wanting to come back and seeing just how professional we are and how serious we are about the HBCU vision. That's what we call it here, HBCU vision, because you can't have a store without a vision.
Hmm.
And we got a vision here at HBCU Central. So we appreciate you so much, Ms. Thomas. And God bless you and be safe as y'all finish the season out.
Yes. God bless y'all as well. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
So the next game up is Grambling versus Jackson State. And Michael, I was telling you this last week. Grambling had to come sharp to beat Jackson State, and Jackson State came and brought their A game. But one
Yes.
thing about Grambling this game, Grambling came and brought their A game too, and it's what we've been talking about the Tigers all year. Were we
Yes.
not just saying how Jackson State was the top team in the SWAC? And look, we say as conference play, you still can't determine the true best team, but you can start to make like which teams are which.
Right.
Jackson State behind Deshaun Ruffin has been putting up electric numbers and been leading them, to a hot start in SWAC play. Gremlin
Right.
has overcame a week off. We said they had a week off and they needed this time to really regroup and get ready for this Jackson State game. But Michael, what are your thoughts on this Gremlin JSU game?
Well, Deuce, I'm going to say this first. I think it's good that Grambling men found a new way to win. Because that's what we talked about when they played Southern. That's what we talked about when they had that break due to the weather. Is that Grambling has to find new ways to win. They have to find new ways to bring back the electricity. They have to find new ways to get that bench behind them. And I think, first of all, you got to give a shout out to Coach Patrick Curry II for making sure the guys understand the identity of not only Grambling State men's basketball program, but understanding that we have to figure out what the problem is because you can't go 2-0 in conference play and then go 2-3 in conference play. That's why I say all the time, conference play is you could be 5-0 and then go 5-5 or 5-6. It's just about a matter is that how you take each game. And they slipped a little bit, but they found ways to be able to refine that identity. And they did that against Jackson State because I'm gonna be honest, going into the Jackson State game, I said to myself, this game is gonna answer one question: where is Grambling after the break? Is this a new Grambling team, or is this the same Grambling team we've seen over the last 3 weeks? And going to the Jackson State game, dudes, they showed us that we're coming back where we're taking it one game at a time, and they proved that to Jackson State. Because make no mistake, Jackson State was very competitive. They're very competitive, and the fact that they went in there and they beat Jackson State, you know, you gotta give credit to Jackson State. They played a heck of a ball game, but Grambling just, they found new ways to win. Like I said before, dudes, out with the old, in with the new, and they brought in a new electricity. They brought in a new focus. They brought in newer ways to make shots, get to the basket, get rebounds, make free throws. They found ways to do that. But the recap of this game is that this game was a back and forth battle at
Came
Ellie
down to the final
Williams.
possession.
Yes, at Ellie Williams Athletic and Assembly Center. Grambling State held a 37-32 lead at halftime, but Jackson State rallied in the second half. That's why I said this. You can't really sleep on Jackson State, but it's a good thing Grambling took care of business and kept the game in front of them in the second half. But you got to give credit to Jackson State for fixing their mistakes and taking advantage of the second half. The game winner, here it is, dudes, the game winner, and y'all can write this down if you want. The game winner with the score tied at 64-64 with just 15 seconds remaining, dudes. Ricky Ballard hit a decisive three-pointer to give Grambling the lead for good. Like I say all the time, dudes, the game ain't over till that clock hits zero. And Ricky Ballard, his name was called, took the opportunity, and he seized the opportunity. that's what matters. And you gotta give a shout out to Ricky Bella for even hitting that three, because dude, that's another thing we talked about. High is Grambling 3-point shooting coming into this game, and Ricky Bella proved our statement again, is that they found ways to make shots, but top performances.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
The one thing that I did take away from this game is that coach moved Antonio Munoz to the bench. So he started on the bench this game. So Grambling was with the new starting five this game.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to change it up like that, the game plan like that, just to go against Jackson State, it shows a lot. And it shows how Patrick McCreary, he has that offensive and that coaching mindset, when to make the right coaching and the coaching adjustments. And this was proven right, for Graham. Grambling, you can see Grambling threw out more experienced starters against JSU. And JSU still, and I'm looking at it right now. Grambling, you can try your best, but Deshaun Ruffin, freak of nature, 38 point. Michael, it's like every time we talk about him, he's putting up 30 points per game. He put up 38 points per game, and I guarantee you Jackson State would have won this. The talk would have been Deshaun Ruffin, but the fact that Grambling as a whole, the team had to step up and make these shots down the stretch to win these games. We just talked about Ricky Ballard making a clutch shot in the final seconds. Mm-hmm. Every shot in teams like this, every shot matters. And this is what we were saying against Southern. Every shot matters. You can't miss these shots. Free throws matter. Grambling as a team shot 71% from the free throw. And yeah, it's 10 from 14, but it's overall improvement from what we saw against Southern. The shooting percentage, the 3-point percentage, way better than what we saw against Southern. But this is what I'm saying. Grambling is taking the right steps so far as the season goes along. And look, yes, they had a hard stretch for like about 3 games, but the fact that the resilience and they were able to come back and get a win over a good Jackson State team goes a lot. Now, next, you play. Let me check this real quick. Yeah. So next up, you got a good Alcorn State team, a good UAPB team, a good Alabama State team, a good Alabama A&M team, Texas Southern, and a good Prairie View team. Mm-hmm. This is a SWAC. It's not no game that you can sleep, because one game we've seen Alcorn, one of the worst teams in the SWAC, beat one of the best teams in the SWAC. So we're just saying it doesn't matter with the SWAC. You got to come to play each game.
Yeah, and see, I told you, dude. Even though Alcorn was the worst team in the SWAC, they are coming up in the SWAC now, because they just beat Southern.
Yes, so, and that's a huge win.
And that's a huge win, especially at Southern. And one thing about conference play is that there are some teams that are real hard to beat in their home location, but it's all about how you take advantage of a team at home, because sometimes a team at home is not that hard to beat. You just gotta find ways to be more creative into taking opportunities when the team is giving it to you. And Alcorn just proved that Southern had weaknesses. Alcorn took advantage of it, and that's what led to Alcorn winning the game. It's not about, because I can go into Southern, I can go into Jackson State, I can go into any home venue and be like, man, it's real intense in here. I don't know if we got a chance to win this game. Am I saying that because of the crowd effect, or am I saying that because of the record? Because sometimes you can be 6-1, 7-1, 9-1 at home, but that does not determine that you cannot win as a travel team, because that's what Alcorn just proved. Alcorn just proved that, even though Southern is a little hard to beat at home, they took advantage of what Southern was struggling with. And
it matters who can put up the best stats and the best game to the clock hits zero. You play your heart out into the clock hits zero, just because of how tough this conference is.
And make no mistake, Jackson State was a little challenging to beat there as well, because one thing I know about Jackson State, whether it's football or basketball, is that them people, they're going to come and show up, especially when it's a team like Grambling. But the fact that, you kind of have to give Jackson State and Grambling credit, because they both played a very competitive game. This is what electrifies the SWAC conference. when games like Grambling and Jackson State happen, when games like Bethune-Cookman and Alabama A&M, which I think that's a game coming up, games like that happen. So it's just really about how you play. And Antonio Munoz, Ricky Ballard led the team with 15 points, dudes. Jamil, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm just going to say Mr. J. Mr. J contributed 14 points and 5 assists. Jackson State. We just talked about this guy. I feel like we're gonna be talking about this guy for a whole.
You know how Andrew Body was a talk. You know how Andrew Body was the whole talk for all the football season as the best player in the SWAC. Deshaun Ruffin is up there as one of the, and it's kind of different with basketball, because basketball you can have a lot of stars emerge on this team because it's less players on the team, so you see a lot of more stars.
Yeah.
Exactly. The way that we were talking about Andrew Body is the same way we talk about Deshaun. This man puts up 30 points per game, almost like every game. Every game I look at it says, 34, 35, 38. And look, Grambling did claw out a tough victory, but you cannot deny that man's great. What he's doing on the court right now, just is incredible.
You cannot define his greatness among that. He has greatness among him, dude. He had the game high at 38. No one else was able to even get to 38. I believe he was the only guy that was able to get 38 in this game. So that's just what it determines, dude. And
Michael, I'm gonna read you. Just listen to these 30-point games this year, okay?
Okay.
Against Alcorn, put up 31 points. Against Alabama State, 36 points. Against Alabama A&M, 39 points. Against FAMU, 30 points. Against Grambling, 38 points. And you can add in all them 20-point games that he has in there, because putting up more than 15 points per game at my eyes in collegiate level is incredible. Look, he's a baller. It's his senior year. It's his senior year. This is what the NBA Combine needs to be looking at. This is what the NBA scouts need to be looking at. 38 points per. You're putting up. You're averaging over 20 points per game basically all season, and you having these 30-point games throughout the year. If I'm an NBA rep, I'm taking note of this. Hey, let's look to our smaller schools. The way people found out about Steve McNair, just looking into Alcorn. When Steve McNair was in the Heisman race as Air McNair, you just had to look. You had to take time out of your day to step away from looking at the PWI. Go look at the HBCUs who has stars. And a lot of people just don't realize that the HBCU has stars that, they may not get the same exposure, but I guarantee you they go put up a good amount of points and be a good contributor in a P5 school.
Think about Jerry Rice in Mississippi Valley. Think about Doug Williams at Grambling State.
Strahan from Texas Southern. Michael Strahan from Texas Southern. I can go on it. Walter Payton from Jackson State.
Exactly. It's legacy upon itself, and it's all coming from HBCUs. All of these players that we just listed. That's what I'm saying, dude. Back then, the pro football, the pro basketball, the pro whatever, they saw what HBCUs had. But we're in a different generation. We're in a different moderate of
and I believe in the time period that we're at, money and exposure is just really the key to success. And your Power 4 schools and your FCS D1 schools, they got that better than the HBCUs because of the money.
Why do you think the NIL is the reason for that? The NIL has gotten HBCUs looking like, that HBCUs, they don't have enough money and all this and that. That's why you see most of these players going to these bigger schools for more NIL money and more media exposure. But I'm actually glad that Andrew Body turned around and went back to Alabama State, because you realize that these bigger schools, they're not going to treat you the same regardless of how good you were in the SWAC, regardless of how good you were in the MEAC conference play or the SIAC conference. Doesn't matter.
And I'm gonna say this for Andrew Body for an example. Andrew Body's a good example. When you have the chemistry and you've had an incredible season, why go in? And look, yes, you can have better opportunities in the FBS, but that also comes with a huge risk, because you can get outplayed by somebody in the FCS, bro. It cannot pan out how you want. Andrew Body returned to the SWAC where he knows his team already. He knows Eddie Robinson Jr. He knows the head coach. He knows the stadium. I think he's just poised for success. And honestly, I know it's not football season right now, but Alabama State is gonna be another team. It's gonna be another team that's dangerous next year. And the way Alabama State's gonna bring in some recruits after how they performed last season. That's only gonna help Andrew Body in the squad around them. But I'm not trying to dive too much off of into football, but that's just my point on that.
Yeah, and that's true. And see that's the thing. And before I get back into what I have left for this Grambling Jackson State game, they like me. First of all, scratch everything I was just going to say because I was just about to say something else, but now scratch all that. The history of HBCUs is that the legacy speaks for itself. A.D. Robinson speaks for itself. Grambling State speaks for itself. Jackson State speaks for itself. All of these HBCUs speak for themselves. Dude, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know nothing about Grambling growing up. I didn't know nothing about Southern growing up. I didn't know nothing about Jackson State growing up until I looked at the history, and then I knew in my mind that HBCUs is where it's at because the history. It's not just because you can watch because like you can say, well, hey, LSU got history, Alabama got history, Arkansas got history, Ohio State got history. That's true. History is history. But there's a difference between HBCU history and Power 5 history. HBCU history is where my parents graduated from, where our ancestors graduated from. When our ancestors couldn't even go to these Power 5 schools, so they had to go to HBCUs. But here's the thing: when they went to HBCUs, they became greats. It wasn't even just about being athletes. It was people who are students who became great people. HBCUs is not just a school. It's a history behind the school itself. HBCUs, big Power 5 schools can't compare to the history of HBCUs because HBCUs, their history dives way deeper than just.
No, and I'm gonna say this, you know the HBCU history dives deeper because us black people, we come from this. It dives deeper because we come from less opportunities, bro. Grambling built, HBCUs built this because we were rejected at the bigger schools.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm gonna say this: if HBCU just had the exposure that Power 5 schools had, I'm talking about ESPN deals, ABC deals, Fox deals, HBCU start seeing the rate of HBCU players in attendance rates just skyrocket. And I'm not saying it's doing bad because Jackson State, Tennessee State, schools like them, they pull their weight. They actually bring in fans. Southern, Prairie View, let me think of some MEAC schools, Norfolk, Delaware State, Grambling. It may not look like it at the game, but Grambling brings in their fans too. But it could always be better. It could always be better.
But check this out. It ain't even just about the crowd. It's the band. Why do you think battle of the bands be happening, dude? Because there's history behind the bands. The world fame, take the world fame for example. The world fame became what they were. Why? Because
we actually hit 100. We actually just hit 100 years this year. Like this is our 100th year. The world fame is 100th year history.
Jackson State. Their band. I think they're called the Sonic Boom.
Of the South, yes.
They have history behind them. Southern, the jukebox, they got history behind them. It ain't even just about the school; it's the band too. That's one thing the Power 5 schools can't relate to, because you don't see Power 5 schools doing battle of the bands. No. You wanna know why HBCU
nor do you see them, nor do you rarely see them traveling as much as HBCU bands. And I can just let alone the amount of stuff that Grambling gets invited to, just to perform because of how nationally well known we are. Saints games, NBA games, parades. Jackson State just went to the Jackson State and Morgan State, I believe. They went last year was Jackson State. This year was Morgan State. They both went to the Rose Bowl parade to perform for the Roses parade. So that's what I'm just saying. We're getting, we just did something for us. For Sports Center, so it just comes left and right, with
you see people are starting to figure out what HBCU pride and HBCU love and HBCU legacy is at an HBCU.
What movie do you know that had Drumline? I'm gonna use that for example. What movie do you know that has HBCU bands just in it, bro? That's
Mm,
focused just specifically on HBCU bands. Because
good thought.
Drumline is literally that. You got Grambling's band in there. You got North Carolina A&T's band in there. I can go on and on.
That's true.
I
That's
just
true.
think it's
I
different.
forgot, I forgot all about that, Deuce, because it's been a while since I watched the Drumline, but that is true because there was all HBCUs in that movie. That's a good point.
I only
But
know about that because literally my dad is in that movie. That is how I know about Drumline. That's so you kind of
shout out
see
to your dad. Shout out to your dad.
you
Shout out
get
to
some
your
pretty
dad.
you get some pretty big stuff. But Michael, the next thing I kind of want to talk about on this is Bethune-Cookman. They just continue to win. And we've said this. I know to the ones watching it gets it's starting to get repetitive, but
Yes.
you cannot deny what players are doing on the court and what Bethune-Cookman team is doing on the court. You just can't beat them. How we were just talking to Miss Thomas
Mm-hmm.
and Howard and UMass are the teams to beat in the MEAC on the women's side.
Mm-hmm.
Bethune-Cookman, we talk about all these top teams in the SWAC. No, Bethune-Cookman is the top team in the SWAC.
They are.
You can't deny what they're doing in the court. And the fact that they are still, like I told you before, they're relatively new to the SWAC. I believe they're 5-6 years in. This is
Yeah.
incredible. Michael, do you want to talk about this game really quick?
Man, I'm just gonna give you everything I got on this pad, man. And I'm just gonna go from there. Bethune-Cookman's men's basketball is currently on a 5-game winning streak, which has allowed them to create significant separation at the top of the SWAC. Deuce, there are 2 games over. Yeah, 2 games over, I believe.
Alabama
Uh,
A&M.
Alabama A&M. They're dudes. I mean, if dominance is just there at Bethune Cookman for the men's basketball team. It's just there. And, it was a post I saw on Instagram, Bethune Cookman just continue to show how dominant they are. And they are. They're doing that game in and game out. Like they got scorers, they got shooters, they got good coaches there. I mean, last year people weren't even thinking about, how good HBCU were. I mean, I'm not HBCUs, of course. Everybody know how good HBCUs are, but
But the
Bethune
other thing
Cookman,
about Bethune-Cookman, Bethune-Cookman, even in football, Michael,
yeah,
even in football, they had a good season.
had a good season. I mean, let me tell you something. Bethune Cookman athletic department, football and basketball, is on another level, and it's going to get more. And I just think the popular recognition for Bethune Cookman University, it's showing, and it's showing in the athletic purpose. But the latest victory, Deuce, for the people that don't know. On January 31st, 2026, Bethune-Cookman defeated Alabama State 69-54, overcoming a 14-point deficit in the first half. Jacoby Heedy led with 18 points, while Dexter uh, Bradley recorded a double-double with 13 points and 10 rebounds. I'm sorry, not Dexter. Dr. Uh, Bradley recorded double-double with 13 points and 10 rebounds. A statement win. On January 24th, they dismantled Jackson State 85-48, a victory that pushed them into sole possession of first place in the conference. Conference standing. They now sit atop of the SWAC with a 7-1 conference record, marking their best start dues in the league since 2012. Key performance indicators: balance efficiency, defensive leaders, and road strength. Those, let me start with balance efficiency. The Wildcats are one of the few teams nationally ranked in the top 3 of their conference for both offensive and defensive efficiency. Defensive leader. The return of Mr. Bradley, the reigning SWAC Player of the Week, has evaluated the team to first in the SWAC for defensive efficiency. Now, road strength, like I just said before, they remain undefeated on the road in SWAC play this season. Like their next game is against Alabama A&M on February the 2nd, which I believe is tomorrow. because I think, tomorrow, because the day is February 1st. Deuce Bethune-Cookman is 10-11, 7-1 in SWAC right now. Their current record, their overall record is 10-11. They currently hold a 2-game lead in the SWAC standings as of February 1st, 2026. But to maintain this position, they must have they must navigate a 10-game remaining schedule that includes key road tests against their closest pursuers and a critical season finale. Now, this before I even give you these teams that they have left.
They just got to play everybody they already beat already, really.
Yes, but
They got to do it 2 times.
Exactly. But
Michael, I had to cut you off real quick.
Go ahead.
But you mentioned that like Bethune-Cookman has a tough road ahead, and they're really about to play all these teams they played over again. You come in with the same game plan, just improved what you fixed, the errors that you fixed from last time, and you're poised for success. Let me say this: Bethune-Cookman. If I'm Bethune-Cookman, the one game I'm worried about the most is my rematch with Southern, because Southern the one that beat you, the only one that beat you in the SWAC, and you got to feel some type. Well, you know how like Miss Thomas just said, UMass beat them earlier in the year. You want to get that get back. Like, you want to get that win. A loss just doesn't sit right in your stomach. You could have been undefeated, but here's our second chance to prove why we should have been undefeated. I believe Bethune-Cookman needs to take that opportunity when they play Southern again.
Yep. And then the reason why I say that, they got key road tests ahead, because there's one thing, like I told Ms. Thomas, is when it comes down to SWAC play, just because you beat a team once doesn't mean it's going to be easier a second time, unless that team is not in really good shape to win against, especially if you're a dominant team like Bethune-Cookman. But, you got teams like Alabama A&M, you got teams like Fairview A&M, you got, teams like Texas Southern, who I will not sleep on. Alcorn State, a team I don't know how Claire can make this, but that dang sure don't want to sleep on Alcorn State, Jackson State, Alabama State, even though Bethune-Cookman beat them, dudes. But at the same time, Alabama State or any of these teams that I just listed so far, and I got many more. I got 4 more left for you. The one thing about Bethune-Cookman is that the teams that they beat, you got to make sure that you continue to win like you've been doing, because now these teams are ready to come and beat you, or you're coming to play them, and they're coming. Their main focus now is that, okay, Bethune-Cookman's our team in the SWAC right now. So now the pressure is on Bethune-Cookman, and now this is adding more fuel to the fire to these teams who either have played Bethune-Cookman or haven't played Bethune-Cookman. But so far, I believe everyone has played Bethune-Cookman. So now it's just more like, can I just suggest, Deuce, that now these teams are ready to come and play Bethune-Cookman, and it's going to be way different than what Bethune-Cookman played firsthand. I guarantee you. But the next 4 games, then you got Alabama A&M again, but you're playing them at Bethune-Cookman. Then you got Grambling State at Grambling. Then you got Southern at Southern. And then the last game of the season, you got Florida A&M, which is the Florida Classic regular season finale. That's the rivalry, dudes. And that's one game. That's one of the games that you really got to make sure that you take advantage of, because you're playing at Florida A&M. And Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman, they don't like each other. I see that. I see that now. I see that in the Classic. I see that in the Florida Classic, dude. So
the first matchup went. You just gotta watch the first matchup.
Yes. So when 2 teams don't like each other, and then not only that, dude, if I remember correctly, if I think back to the football season, didn't Bethune-Cookman beat Florida A&M by a touchdown, or was it the other way around?
It was one or the other, but it was a walk-off touchdown, and I believe it was on FAMU.
I think it was. So, and then Bethune-Cookman, they took care of Florida A&M at Bethune-Cookman. So now Bethune-Cookman is going to Florida A&M. So now it's like, ooh,
Tallahassee.
I'm kind of like this.
Daytona to Tallahassee.
Yes, that's a game to watch.
Look, I'm gonna say this really quick, Michael. They're closing off the year at FAMU. So you started conference play in Florida, in Tallahassee. You better close the season out strong in Tallahassee and go into, tournament season on a hot, because all these teams are gonna make the tournament, but the
Yes,
seeding is kind of where it matters. Seeding is what matters the most.
but
Bethune-Cookman,
see,
you got to go into this tournament with on a strong note. You can't go into no tournament off no L.
here's the thing about the seeding wise is that even though let's say Bethune-Cookman wins out the rest of these games, they get the number one, they get the number one seed. But see, here's the thing about the number one seed: you could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seed, and really you could be the top team, the top three teams uh, in the tournament, and all those top three teams end up losing to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds. That's what I'm saying. Is that it doesn't really matter what seed Bethune-Cookman falls in. It's just a matter about how you control your game going into the tournament. Because we've seen a lot of teams do the number one seed end up getting eliminated by a team that is literally no threat in the tournament, but turns out to be a threat. So,
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. But the games I'm looking forward to as far as Bethune-Cookman is Alabama A&M. You got Coach Dante Jackson over there. They're second right behind Bethune-Cookman, so they're definitely going to want to give Bethune-Cookman their first off, especially at Alabama A&M. Then you got Prairie View, who make no mistake, they're in the top. They're in the top five right now as far as SWAC play wise. So they're not. They are a top five SWAC team in conference play. Whether I don't know if they are, maybe they're not, but I just think when it comes down to teams like Alabama A&M, Prairie View A&M, Alcorn State, Jackson State, Grambling, Southern, and then Florida A&M. I just think all those teams that I just listed, dudes. I just think honestly, those are one of the hottest teams for Bethune-Cookman, especially Grambling because Grambling struggled in
And
Florida.
the craziest part about that Grambling game is we know you can kind of see the areas in which Grambling struggled in. Grambling
Yeah,
just has to fix that up, and we play Bethune-Cookman here. So
but see, here's the thing: the difference between February 26th and what happened the first matchup it's really going to determine where is Grambling before this game even gets here, and how Grambling comes out, of this game because it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And if it's one thing I know about Patrick Query the second is that even though you beat Jackson State at Jackson State, which is a good green flag after being laid off due to weather purposes and stuff like that, that's good. But now that you beat Jackson State, now you gotta carry that all that energy that you just had against Jackson State. Now you have to carry that on to the next game, to the next game, to the next game. That's the mindset of basketball. And I hopefully that this new transition that Grambling has can get them more wins than losses in conference play. But as far as Bethune-Cookman goes, they just have to control their own legacy at this point. They just have to control their game. And Deuce, it's a movie. It's called Road to Glory. When Bobby Joe Hill, went and told Coach Don Haskins that Coach, you just gotta let us play our game. And he let them play that game, and they controlled themselves and they controlled their team going into the tournament. So that's basically, where Bethune Cookman players and the head coach over there. It's just more like they just have to play their game. They have to control their game.
ag-
That's the
agreed.
bottom line. That's the
So
bottom line.
so jumping from SWAC play to the SEAC conference. What the first game we're really the only game we really want to talk about, or we are going to talk about to close this out, is just Fort Valley versus Albany State. We talked about Albany State in the past, but now I want to talk about the on the basketball side of things. They just recently won 80-78. Mike, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it just basically just tells you just how competitive um, one that game was and how competitive uh, of how that conference is. And like I just said, dude, that just tells you a lot about that conference. Is that it's really competitive in the SIAC conference, I believe. So that's just where it tells you. But from what I got on here, dudes, is that Albany State swept their arch rival Fort Valley State in a winter homecoming doubleheader in Albany, Georgia. The Golden Rams secured a dynamic 80-78 victory in the men's game and a 67-61 win in a women's contest. Due to men's basketball recap, the men's game was a high intensive battle featuring 16 ties and 19 lead changes. The finish, write this down. Trailing 78-77 with just 21 seconds remaining, Cameron Evans made two clutch free throws to put Albany State ahead. Let me stop right there. Dudes, that just tells you, I literally preached this when Grambling played Southern. Free throws, they matter, especially in clutch moments. And the Albany State and Fort Valley State game just proved my point. Keith, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So basically, my takeaway from this Fort Valley State game is, Michael, we always talk about depth, right? And how you got to have the whole team to win. And look, I just really feel like, shout out to Aiden Lambert, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. But at the same time, I think as much as it was a close game down the stretch, Albany State showed why having more players in a rotating depth chart wins you games along the stretch, because players get tired. You got to be able to rotate. You got to be able to next man up. That's got to be able to step up, and that is what Albany State did down the stretch.
Yes, and Sterling Moody added a final free throw to seal the 80-78 win for Albany State. Key performers, Shakur Patet, I think that's his name. I'm just gonna say Mr. Shakur, and Kendall Johnson, who hit 5 3-pointers, led Albany State with 17 points each. Evans and Christian Gary both contributed 12 points. The difference maker, Deuce, is free throw shooting proved decisive. Albany State shot 80%, 12 of 15 from the line in the second half, while Fort Valley managed only 36%, 4 of 11 from the line. And dudes, like I said, that just shows you that you gotta make all your free throws. And so far, from what I'm looking at, Albany State missed only 3 of their free throws, and uh, Fort Valley State missed 7 of theirs. So that's just that tells you that who won this game, and Albany State did just by their free throw shooting. And like I say all the time, these free throw shooting, it matters, especially in rival games like Fort Valley and Albany State.
When you have a team, first let me break this down for you. Had the score was tied 16 times, the lead was changed 19 times. You put that into retrospect, that's a competitive game. If the score is not set, normally if a team has a good lead, you're probably gonna see the score change in the early minutes about 5-6 times. But when the team starts to get settled, that's when that's the game. And we saw that with Bethune and Grambling. 19 times throughout the game, and the game doesn't come. It comes down to the final possession. You mentioned free throws was the one what ultimately ended the game. I just think when you play good teams like this and close HBCU games like this, the whole team had it's little margin for error. Because just like that, Albany State, who's been a good program all season, could have just gotten a loss to Fort Valley in a snap like that. But due to the depth on the team, the free throws, the contributing factors, and just Albany State beating Fort Valley at the Fort Valley at the part, and the stats that they couldn't beat them in, it goes a long way. That's just pretty much what I have to say on that.
It does, and it goes a very, very long way to determining the game and how the game is going to go. But Deuce, because I have the women's stats here as well. Did you want me to run that down right quick?
Yes, if you want to run that down real quick, we'll be good, and then we can just wrap this podcast up for the day.
All right, cool. All right, y'all. Here it is. Y'all can write this down if you want. The women's basketball game. Albany State avenged a loss from earlier in the week with a 67-61 victory. The turning point in this game, y'all, is that after an early back and forth, Miss Paxton gave the Golden Rams a permanent lead with a steal and a layup in the first quarter. Now, key performance. You can write this down if you want. Miss Jada Morgan and Miss I think I'm saying her first name right, Miss Soraya Johnson led the scoring with 11 points each. Miss Washington nearly had a double double off the bench with 10 points and 9 rebounds. The playmaking is Miss Tiffany Goodman orchestrated the offense with a game high 11 assists. Deuce, this game just specifically showed you that the rivalry was there, not just on the women's side, but on the men's side of the basketball. So basically, like I just said before, Albany State completed the sweep. And that's also another thing that you have to understand about conference play. That it's very important that not only do your women's program wins, but your men program wins too, because it's always good, excuse me, to beat your rival 2 games up. And
Yes.
and I know you can agree with me on that,
Southern,
dude.
I know Southern fans are eating right now that they beat Grambling in the Bayou Classic after they worst year. Then they came
Uh,
and beat us in basketball. Oh my! After Grambling was on a hot streak,
and
just
then I
can't
got
make it up.
football recap. And then I got football recap too. So, Deuce, if you think back from November 8th, 2025, in their most recent football meeting at the 35th annual Fountain City Classic, Albany State dominated with a 48-3 victory over Fort Valley State. The win capped an undefeated season in the SIAC play for the Golden Rams. So not only do Albany State win in football, but then they win in basketball. So now, not only if you count football, dudes, that's 3-0. And then now, like you just said, Southern beat Grambling in the Bayou Classic. They beat Grambling, the women's basketball team beat Grambling, and then the men's
You know,
basketball
I
beat
think
Grambling. So that's
I
how
try to.
Southern 3-0 against Grambling.
I also think about it like this. You also got to get your up in baseball too. If you can beat us in baseball, because Grambling got a pretty good baseball team. Southern, if you can beat us in baseball, then you didn't swept us. You didn't swept us in basically the major sports all season. But Michael, what you got? Anything else on that?
That's basically all I got for you, dudes. I would say though, if I announce any names correctly or incorrectly, please forgive us. We try to announce everyone's names to the best of our abilities. Um, but that's basically all I got as far as as far as name correction. I know a lot of people are probably like, "What are you saying?" I was like, "I don't know, y'all. I'm just basically reading off what I got on here."
Can Before we
Yeah.
close this out, Michael, can you give us a look ahead at our next upcoming guest in our upcoming spotlight series?
Yes. So as far as our spotlight series goes, I believe we have Morgan. Is it Morgan State coming up next, dude?
Yeah, it's Morgan State.
Yeah. So we got Morgan State coming up next, and I have the. We are still looking to try to get some players on there for our first HBCU spotlight. Make sure that y'all tune in for that with journalist Mr. Mark, who is investing into learning more about HBCUs and the legacy of what it means to be an HBCU person. Because Mr. Mark told me and Deuce that I did not realize that a man like me, I had to bring race into it, but a white man knowing, about HBCU, that was beyond me. But I'm kind of glad that I see HBCUs for what they are. And I'm gonna tell y'all the same thing I told Mr. Mark. I was like, it doesn't matter what color you are; it's just about how much are you willing to learn about an HBCU. And Mr. Mark really just proved our point because really he came up with this idea about doing a spotlight for HBCUs. And me, Deuce, we will be a part of that. We will have some players coming up for that spotlight. So we're trying to do each and every HBCU. But for our first one, we will be doing Morgan State. But Deuce, to look ahead for what I got next on my schedule, Deuce. So y'all stay tuned because on February 8th, if the schedule stays the same, we will have UAPB men's basketball players coming in and expressing their thoughts and actions. Um, I think I have his name. Let me go to my Instagram right quick so I can give y'all a name for that. Give me 1 second. 1 second. Um, What's up right now? But okay, wait a minute. Excuse the delay, y'all. I'm trying to. All right. iPad wants to. So, Deuce, you know his name, don't you?
I mean, it's a lot of them that's coming.
I really my
Look,
name is.
so we're not holding all up. There will be a flyer posted because we always post our collab flyers on our page, HBCU Central.
I got it.
Oh,
I
you got
got
it.
it. Yes, it's Mr. Trevon Payton from UAPB. He will be one of our UAPB players that will be our next special guest on the 8th of February. That is on a Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and it might be Eastern Time for some of you or whatever time you are in. But as far as that, that is our next special guest on the 8th of February, where we have our UAPB men's basketball players. I think it'll be about 3 or 4 that'll be joining us. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that for Mr. Payton and his UAPB men's basketball Lions teammate.
Yes. So we have a lot of, we're not going to spill too much yet because we have a lot of stuff planned up for the
Yes,
coming weeks. Maybe even Hampton's head coaches on our stuff. We'll have to see. But
yes,
it's a lot of big things for inside the locker room, or you can call this HBCU Central. I really don't know, but all this is to help inside the locker room. Make sure you tune into our latest video before we close this out. We had one with a group video. All of us were back on it last week for episode 36. Also check out our last interview with our 2 UAPB players. Then like Michael said, make sure you stay tuned to our spotlight and don't just like our content, like Adam and Ben's content too, because they're a part of the team too. If you
exactly.
like our content, just keep sharing it and keep supporting us. The support, it matters a lot to us and it's what keeps us going. But just basically to close this out, make sure y'all stay safe, y'all stay tuned and help us. Our goal is 350 subs right now. We're at 311, so we're trying to get to 320 by the end of the week. Help us get there, share our content and keep following our Instagram. We hit 100 followers after 5 days, I believe. So that is thanks to y'all after 11 days.
Yes, because we started in February. I believe we started on the 20th, and we reached 100 followers on the 31st of January. So we appreciate y'all so much for getting us to 100. Cause like our guy Ben said, that was quick. And to be honest, it kind of was because I was not expecting us to reach 100 in just 1 month. And so we appreciate y'all so much. We appreciate all of your coaches, all of your players, and even students because we also have some students that have been following us, dude. So we appreciate y'all from HBCU Central and me and Deuce, the co-host of that Instagram page. We appreciate y'all. Now the goal is to try to reach 200 or at least 150. Going into the HBCU Central. So we're working. We're not working for fame. We're working for division of HBCUs, and that's to uplift HBCUs, and not for popular views or popular all this and that. 'Cause I could care less about popularity. I don't really care about none of that. I just care about uplifting HBCUs better than some of these podcasters, especially in the state of Louisiana that don't really talk about Grambling, don't really talk about Southern, but they could talk about LSU, Tech, ULM, University of Lafayette, and Tulane, but they don't talk about Grambling and Southern. So that's why me and Deuce, what we do is what we do. Like I just told Miss Thomas, the vision for HBCU Central is to uplift HBCU players and schools to these pro agencies to let them know that HBCUs is where it's at. HBCU pride is just as intense as it is at these Power Five schools. But all you got to do is take the time and just look. And like I told Ms. Thomas, you won't know how competitive something is until you look. And I'm just advising, I highly encourage that if you're a Power Five recruiter or coach, take the time to look at some of these. I'm sorry, not Power Five
Power
recruiter.
four.
If you're a pro, agency, basketball, football, softball, whatever, take the time to look at these HBCUs because HBCU is where it's at. History has been
Agree.
made at HBCUs. Hall of Famers came from HBCUs. So we have to turn the tables around to bring back HBCUs back into these drafts. That's the vision of HBCU Central.
Agreed. And basically, look, what I want to say is me and Michael, as because basketball season is already coming to a wrap. So I think we got like a month and a half left, and then it's tournament time in April. So it's the season is coming to end like really quick. But also what that means, baseball season is starting up. Me and Michael, we have said we are going to be trying to get into that. I know Michael has been sending me some baseball updates. So we are going to be doing that, and maybe look for the baseball. We may not even start covering just the MEAC, and so we may start with the smaller schools first, because
Mhm.
if you think football and basketball, small schools don't get attention, oh my gosh, it's different for baseball.
And
But
it's different
you
from
know,
baseball.
just to close this out, like we said, make sure y'all stay safe and just support us, help us reach our goal. As always, it's Deuce from inside the locker room. Stay safe. And Michael, do you have your closing remarks?
No, just make sure y'all stay safe. You know, pray for one another. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for yourselves. But also make sure that you keep God first in everything that goes on in your life. Because without God, we wouldn't be living how we're living today. So just make sure that you keep yourselves prayed up. Make sure you keep your family prayed up. Make sure you keep your friends, students or whatever prayed up because, we're all in this together from HBCU Central. But like I said before, pray for yourself, pray for your neighbor, pray for your family, but also make sure you pray for your community because, like Miss Sandra said, we're all in this together. And in the words of my pastor, may your next days be your best days. This is Michael from HBCU Central and Inside the Locker Room, and then Michael Sports Talk. This is Deuce from Sports Talk with Deuce and HBCU Central and Inside the Locker Room. Wishing y'all a great, successful week and night. Grace and peace be upon y'all.